the Holy Ghost in me.
All right, everybody. Here I am again. I'm sorry I've been a little bit low at my videos, but I've been doing so much research on one thing, and it's funny how when you start researching one thing that you just get buried in it, information. And since we don't have a whole lot of time on YouTube, I'm constrained for time. Now today I want to talk to you about salve et coagula. Salve et coagula. Now these two words are very interesting, and you would ask, well, why am I talking about it? Where does that come from? Well, I'll see if I can help you out. It actually comes from this cat right here. This is the baphoment, ladies and gentlemen. And here, on this forearm, we see salve, and on this arm, coagula. Now, salve et coagula is Greek, in spite of what others may say on this baphoment. Now, the baphomet statue or image, has a lot to say. None of it good. And I want to try to cover this in at least a couple of videos, if you'll let me. But what I want to talk about today is what's on the forearms of this baphomet. This hand pointing up, this hand pointing down. There are differences in the hand signs. We'll get to that later. Along with the staff, which is not part of his genitals as it would seem. It's a staff with two snakes wrapped around it and an archway. This also has a meaning, and we'll get to that in another video. Also notice the baphomet has boobs, and we'll discuss that along with the torch on top of its head and the pentagram. Not to mention it has a goat's head and goat's feet, along with the crescent moon. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's so much here to discuss, and he doesn't look very happy, and he's not. He's not happy. He's not happy with the way things are running. He's not happy with what God has to say and what God does. He's a very unhappy statue. Now, with that being said, let's take a look at what this all means. Now, for the sake of completeness and adding to what is going on in the world versus this statue, I want to try to make it perfectly clear. So, with that being said, this is the state of play. This is how it runs down. Now, the Baphomet is a deity that the Knights of Templar worshipped. They're the ones that basically brought this Baphomet into play. And they say that they were falsely accused for worshiping the Baphomet. But let's go ahead. Even though that their coat of arms, their arms, and on their shields was this symbol. But that's another video. So I want to talk about these arms. On the right arm, salve, left arm, coagula. Okay? Now, these words mean something, and they came up long before quantum physics. Alchemy pointed to its most important question and operation. Now, alchemy is any magical power or process of transmitting a common substance, okay? Transmuting a substance, usually of little value, into a substance of great value. So it's any magical process of transforming or combining elements into something new. This is the work of alchemy. Now, salve e coagula. Salve, we see here, refers to the breaking down of elements, and coagula refers to their coming back together. Now, in the process of arriving at the philosopher's stone, this contained both literal and hidden meaning. Salve. Salve referred to the dissolving of a hardened position, negative states of body and mind, thereby dissolving and vanishing negative energetic charge. Right? Pay attention. Coagula referred to the coagulation of the dispersed elements that were salved into an integrated whole representing the new synthesis or the new thing. Salve et coagula expresses transmutation from base to a finer state, the perpetual goal of spiritual growth and human evolution. Now, I have my notes here so I don't get off the track. I want to stick to what I'm talking about. So, in the widest meaning of the term, salve means to dissolve, to disperse, to dilute, right? Coagulate, by definition, is to gather or form into a mass group or something different from the whole that was in the beginning. So the real meaning of these words, salve et coagula, is the formula that the alchemists, the sorcery, the magical demonologists used to effect this transformation. It could be described as a process where something is broken down into elements, a process which produces power that compels, indeed demands the reconstruction in a pure form. So if we salve something, then we want it brought into an original form, or what we think a purer form, right? Better than the first. The same meaning we find in the well-known scientific terms analysis and synthesis. okay? For those of you who are understanding in the works of physics. First, we got to break something down into its parts. If I want to change something into something better, the first thing I have to do is break it down. I got to break it down into its parts, the different parts. Then I have to make it new, better, more acceptable whole. As a result of this process, it's the release of a changing power. In physics, this means that I take something, I break it down, I rearrange it into something bigger, better, more powerful. This is the thinking of the physicist who would be working on the particle. Now, even in some particular occult systems, we find this realization because this is the will and the goal of the occult systems. For example, in the duality of Nuit and Hadit, Nuit is the goddess of infinite space, meaning like a wave, and Hadit is the point, which means the particle, the whole. So what all this has to do with our world, what does it have to do? What does it have to do with spiritual technology and therapy? And psychology? Well, we have to apply what we know, ladies and gentlemen. And we know we're not able to work with a wave. We have to transform that wave into a whole. The wave, I can't work with it because it's ever changing. Sometimes big, sometimes small, sometimes rogue. Right? So we can't work with a wave. We have to transform that wave into a particle, a whole. We can't work with some indefinite problem. For example, fear, or Black Lives Matter, or corrupt government. Right? So here's how it breaks down according to the baphoment. First, we have to elevate it through observing it and measuring it. First, we have to elevate it. Right? Through observing and measuring it. And then we ask our client, or the ones we are working with, what is the location of your fear? Is it dimensions? Is it color? Is it your level of consciousness? Is it the way you're thinking? So doing it, for example, with some fear, we can see that the endless and formless wave changes into quite concrete government. A government is something we are able to assist in transforming of, and this is the salve. So this government is bugging us. So this government is the location of my fear, the attack on my color. It attacks the way I think, this government. It doesn't allow me to be a free thinker. because I'm oppressed by this wave. And every time I get a chance to get my surfboard out and ride it, I'm smashed against the rocks. So the first thing I have to do is salvate. It's what I have to do. Now, asking for the particulars of our client's problem is the coagula. We're going to ask, what's your problem? So what we're going to do is, now we're going to try to congeal it together. Once we find the client's problem, we apply the adequate method to disperse it, freeing its power, salve. The client regroups, and again we come out of the process with a new government, a measurable, transformed, pure state which is positive and desirable, or so it would seem, and that brings us to salve icte coagula. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is the plan that you're watching right now. The plan of salve et coagula. It started out as Black Lives Matter because of a murder of another black man. Not just one, but many across the nation in the past. And now we're tired of it. Now we don't want to do this. We're tired of the government. We're tired of the city government. We're tired of the state government, and we're tired of the federal government, and it's time to change. It's time to change. So the first thing is, according to Mr. Baphoment here, is we have to dissolve what's in act. And it starts from the top, not from the bottom, but from the top down, you see. Now we are, I would say, those that contend this revolution are from the bottom up. They want to come from the poorest state and become their own aristocrats. Because to them, the government, whether it's local, state, or federal, they believe them all to be aristocrats, the oppressors. And so the fight is not to open up a race or a color, but it is to open up a way to bring down this oppressing power, dissolve it, so that we can take these laws and rules and old-time Constitution and bring it back together into a new and better world. Now, this is the intention of Satan, or rather Lucifer, from the beginning. He wanted to salve et coagula in heaven. He wanted to dissolve what God was doing so that he could sit on the throne, this cat right here, and rule it better. So he thought. Only to find out that this whole plan was null and nullified. Because God has the supreme power. But now we're dealing with human beings. Human beings with vast differences, vast characteristics, vast personalities. And they are pushing an agenda that they've been taught since childhood by their forefathers. not the forefathers of the government, of their parents. And they're tired of being citizens. They think that as citizens of the aristocrats, they are oppressed, i.e., the aristocratic white people. It's more than just a quote-unquote race war. You know what, the media, y'all need to open up and figure this out. This is a demonic, whether it's spiritual or physical, ladies and gentlemen, it's a demonic push to dissolve what you see working now and turning it to a revolution so that we can break it all down, break all the parts down, and lay them out there and come up with a new group of people to look at what's left, look at the elements, and then bring them together into a brand new government, a purer, more better government. And that's what the thought is. That's the genuine push, albeit may or may not be for the better. While we lean toward Marxism and some of these pursuits, which is wrong, already been proven to be unsuccessful, for some reason the millennials think maybe that'll work. No, it won't work. Look at the history. All the history, but they won't look at the history. They want to pull down all the statues and put this statue up in the town square. Not because it represents Satan, they would say, but because it represents a new way, a new coagula. It represents a coagula, a bringing together of more and better processes. The judicial system is corrupt, so we'll dissolve it. Look at the elements, and then we'll bring a better justice to America. The government is corrupt, but we'll break it down. We'll dissolve it, and we'll reshape it and coagulate it into something that's better, so they say. Which, what I'm trying to tell you is this is what the Baphomet says, but also this is something that's been going on since ancient Greece. It's a circle, a non-ending circle of hell between the aristocrats and the citizens. Now, in the United States, most citizens are satisfied. But it takes but a few to start a revolution. But the difference here is it's around the world. It's happening all around the world, which tells me that it's demonic to the core. Because Satan has got up off the stump and says now he has a more better way to fix it around the world. A new world order. We're at the beginning stages of Salve et Coagula. The very beginning stages. And I see it being pushed to where it's dissolved and the elements are laid before the people. This is not the first time. I said this is not the first time. And with that being said, this cat right here, believe you me, he has a lot more to say. And I'll get to that in my next video.
Pardon me, I've got something to say. When all those lies devil he comes to play. Live on campus, live on campus, good law. Jesus is alive, but for the dark side is all gone. What was I thinking? I got the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost in me.